Toronto as the Century Celebration was up for some awards, as you know, for the Canadian Event Awards, as well as the Greater Victoria Festival Society, which I sit on the board for the. They were up for the 125th Victoria Day Parade. Sadly, the Century Celebration didn't win anything, but the Greater Victoria Festival Society did win an award, and this is nationwide, which is a huge deal for the 125th Victoria Day Parade and the all-inclusive weekend that Gordy Dodd sponsors as well. So that was really exciting to be a part of that. The RMTS AGM was on May 1st. My time as president came to an end. And Val Latini is now going to hold that position, and I'll become past president. And I just want to take a moment to thank the board and the staff for all of that they do and the work that they do to ensure that the theaters are run in a way that's really inclusive and supports not only our nonprofit partners, but other cultural events that come out into our region. For example, we have a lot of Broadway things that are coming up. Kinky Boots is coming up. Get your tickets soon. And other things that are a little bit later on this year. The BIA, as the mayor mentioned, the BIA AGM was just this past week, and the mayor and Councillor Green were there. And I just want to thank the BIA for all their great work. They really make us look so good. I did send the report through staff to all of the councillors, their annual report, and so you can have a read of exactly all of the activities that go on and the impact that they have on our community. And I think it's huge, and I do thank them for the work that they do. Camas Day, we celebrated 80 years for the Uplands Park and 80 years of our volunteer extraordinaire Margaret Litke, and that was a lot of fun. It was a great day. And this past weekend, I was able to attend the Oak Bay Lawn Bowling opening and was able to play a few ends and see the work on the interior that was made possible by grants that they received through Oak Bay Council. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councillor Braithwaite. I'll take the opportunity to say on behalf of Council, extend our appreciation and our congratulations for the Victoria Day, for your work on behalf of that organization, for that win that represents, that's a superior accomplishment. Thank you very much for your work for that, and also for your leadership on the RMTS board. That's fantastic. We appreciate your representation of Oak Bay and your contributions in that regard, so thank you. Councillor Green.
Thank you very much, Chair. I too attended Camas Day with some of my colleagues, and that was very well attended. I understand at the end, Margaret Litke reported she thought there were over 700 people at the event, which is incredible for Camas Day. So and it was beautiful weather that day too. I attended the BIA AGM, as Councillor Braithwaite mentioned, on behalf of tourism, and they do a great job. And having the connection between tourism and the BIA is really, it makes for a great relationship. Martin Cowden sits on the tourism committee now, and it took years to get that to happen, and so there's a much greater collaboration between the two bodies now as a result. I attended a GVLRA Zoom meeting, a Heritage Commission meeting, and then also attended the Federal Environmental BC Forestry Preservation announcement at Queen's Park, at which time the federal government, and I can't remember the amount, but it was a lot of money for tree planting. And perhaps Councillor Patterson can remember the amount and how many trees they hope to plant. Anyway, it was very well done, and the secretary who attended on behalf of the federal government had not been to British Columbia before, and so she was very impressed. And standing at Queen's Park was amazing as the backdrop to everything. So, and then this week, tomorrow, I will be attending the Water Commission meeting at CRD and the Tourism Committee meeting on Thursday night. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. I will pass it to Councillor Patterson. I think Councillor Green indicated that you would give precise numbers with respect to trees and value, Councillor Patterson. So,
yes, thank you, Chair. And like many around the table, I too did attend Camas Days, and it was wonderful. And I think the turnout this year was really perhaps because it was an extra special year, but it was a wonderful day. Maybe it was the cake. I think the two large cakes to celebrate the birthday. It was a little messy eating, but I noticed that a lot of it was polished off quite quickly. So that was great, and we're always so appreciative of everything our volunteers do, and also our park staff who attended the event and always helped to make it the success that it is. And yes, on May 12th, I also was in attendance at Queen's Park for Secretary Provost's announcement highlighting Canada's new nature strategy to protect natural environment. And yes, she did mention 272 million allocated to plant 95 million trees across British Columbia to help with replenish the fire zones and whatnot. So, I mean, that was very pleasant. It was also wonderful. This was Secretary Provost's first visit to Vancouver Island. She was very, very impressed about Oak Bay, and unfortunately, I think one of the derelict boats was removed from the harbor before the secretary visited us, so that was very nice. But she was so impressed with Vancouver Island. She just couldn't believe the wonderful place that we call home every day. So that was wonderful. But I did note that despite the mayor spending considerable amount of time attending, and myself and Councillor Green also attending from, we had Councillor Thomas attending from Esquimalt Nations to open with us. So we had nice visits, but I noticed that in the Times Colonist, it was Jacques Sirois that got the note, it got the photograph and the mention in the paper. I don't know if that was because of his bilingualism and his approaching the secretary, and he's always very exuberant about this region. But yeah, I thought, wow. So Mayor and Councillor Green, although three of us were in attendance, none of us made the front page of the TC. And then on May 15th, I attended the official opening, the ribbon cutting for the new CREST facility out in Emergency Communications Building out in Langford. And of course, it was the wrap up of the project. Hard to believe, because I'm the chair of the Finance Committee, I had to do all of the review of the file. Hard to believe that we came so close to our initial number that we projected in 2019, despite coming through pandemics and supply interruptions, tariffs, and inflation. But I will be very pleased. We will be holding our board meeting and our AGM this week, so I will be very pleased to report out both as a representative of the task force and as the chair of the Finance Committee on the successful completion of not only the building itself, which is quite remarkable, and I think even more than staying on time, staying on budget, was the fact that the CREST staff have the expertise to carry out a project like that, and particularly transfer the switch from the RCMP building out at West Shore over to the new facility without any disruption to emergency communications in the area. And that's no small accomplishment, and I credit them highly, and I value them. I value the working relationship I have with them. And that will conclude my report on my meetings. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councillor Patterson. And again, on behalf of Council, just extend my thanks and congratulations to you for your involvement in the CREST project. I know that's a major milestone, and I know you played a very important role on behalf of the district in developing that building and doing that work. And we're always assiduously keeping Council apprised of what the progress was on that. So on behalf of Council, extend my thank you for that. Councillor Smart.
Thank you. This past week, I enjoyed participating in the Capital Bike Commuter Bike Challenge, arriving 6 minutes ahead of Councillor Dave Thompson from City of Victoria, who very admirably supported another great transportation choice, car share, by taking an Evo. I also had some really good conversations about biodiversity at Camas Day. I also recently organized an event at Design Victoria called Ground Equity, where we had discussion topics around fostering belonging in our community. And I joined many of my colleagues around the table at the Association of Vancouver Island Coastal Communities conference, where I think Mayor Murdoch mentioned, we had 2 successful motions supporting student food banks and reduced ferry fares for post-secondary students. So really glad to be able to speak on those and support our students. And then I also attended, again with many of the colleagues around the table, the Volunteer Appreciation Dinner at Monterey.
Thank you, Councillor Smart. Councillor Watson.
Thank you. Very briefly, I had the honor to attend on behalf of Mayor and Council the National Day of Mourning ceremony that was held on April 28th. This National Day of Mourning is to remember workers who have been injured or killed on the job, and our staff did a wonderful job of convening a very simple but moving ceremony at the Scented Garden. I also attended the South Island Prosperity Partnership Municipal Partners meeting later that same day. And I just want to say again how struck I am as our representative for Oak Bay at what an entrepreneurial and nimble organization that is. As you know, the senior staff have been going around to all the councils, including councils who are not actively participating municipal members, just explaining their role in the region and their if that's the right word, catalyzation of economic development opportunities is really profound. They are really the ones driving this in the greater Victoria region, and just hats off to them. And I know they're working extremely hard right now on their mandate. And Councillor Appleton will be attending the annual general meeting in the next couple of weeks on behalf of Oak Bay as the alternate liaison, as I'm unable to attend. Last week, I attended the advisory design panel. It was quite a long discussion about one of the applications. Both applications that were at that meeting will be coming to council on June the 8th. And I want to say she can't, fly her own flag, but I would like council to know that our own Councillor Smart received a significant honor from the Royal Architects Institute at the national level, and has become a fellow of the Institute. So hearty congratulations to Councillor Smart. Clearly very honored in her profession and respected for the hard work that she's been doing and, landmarks in her career. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much, Councillor Watson, and congratulations to Councillor Smart. Thank you for that acknowledgement. For my part, I'll be brief. My 2 main appointments are with the Heritage Foundation. The Heritage Foundation has been doing a bunch of very hard work over the past few months, actually completely updating and modernizing their bylaws in a move to sort of modernize the operations of the foundation and reflecting their current role and what they would like to do. I want to take the opportunity to thank staff. A number of our staff have been supporting the foundation in developing the language and aligning the language with how the foundation is intended to work with the district. So I wanted to say thank you very much for that. It represents a major evolution for the foundation and provides a strong basis for where the organization will go and what they hope to accomplish. So I'm very, very grateful to them for that. And then, of course, an ongoing role as trustee with the Greater Victoria Public Library Board. Have just attended sort of the very long, as we do at council, our end of year auditing and wrap up of the financials. Did the same thing with the GVPL, all as you would expect in very, very good order. With respect to activities at the GVPL, I will take this opportunity to acknowledge, as council may already would be aware and as public may be aware, it's been publicly announced that CAO Maureen Sawa, who has come and presented in front of council on a number of different occasions and has been leading the GVPL for over 15 years, is stepping down this year. She, of course, leaves an enormous hole and cannot be, somebody will come in to serve that role, but she cannot be replaced. She is one of the best in the country and in North America at what she does. And I just wanted to take this opportunity in this forum, because we will probably not have Ms. Sawa back at council before she steps away. I just wanted to take this opportunity to congratulate her, to thank her for her service with the board, and my appreciation to her, very particularly in supporting me as chair. Also Mayor Murdoch, as when he served as chair as well. She leaves an extraordinary legacy in her work, and I just wanted to acknowledge that in this forum. Thank you for your indulgence in that part, so thank you. I will move on to section 4 on the agenda, which is special meeting matters, excuse me. Item 4.1 is a development permit for 295 King George Terrace, and I will ask Mr. Green to introduce. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members of council. The district has received a development permit for the property located at 295 King George Terrace. The purpose of the application is to allow the development of an accessory dwelling unit on the property that is partially located within the Shorelines development permit area. This is an amended application to the one that was denied by council on March the 2nd of this year. Following the denial by council, the applicant has submitted a new amended application. The proposed accessory dwelling unit has been designed to minimise disturbance within the shoreline DPA, employing a cantilever design to minimise foundation impacts and protect against sea level rise. While the previous application included variances to the zoning bylaw to reduce the required separation between buildings and structures, the size and siting of the proposed ADU has now been amended, and the applicant is no longer requesting any variances. The proposed accessory dwelling unit still encroaches into the Shorelines DPA to the same extent as the previous application. However, the building's footprint has been reduced to achieve the required separation between the existing concrete stairs and the proposed accessory dwelling unit. The previous application also included a siting variance to reduce the required separation between the proposed ADU and an existing wooden sitting deck on the property. This variance has also been removed, and the wooden sitting deck will be required to be removed, relocated or confirmed to not meet the definition of a structure in the district zoning bylaw as a condition of the issuance of the permit. The applicant has also submitted an updated letter from a qualified environmental professional addressing the impacts on the shoreline in relation to the cantilever design of the proposed ADU. Staff are recommending that the development permit application be approved, and the applicant is here online to answer any questions that council may have on their application. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Green. Questions for staff? Councillor Patterson.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and through you to either the applicant or staff, I guess. In the report, and certainly by the professional expert in it, it did state that so long as the light and precipitation can continue to reach the area beneath the proposed elevated ADU, that there would be minimal alteration in the existing features. And there was a letter attached to the report that it was talked about, the comfort letter, and it said, it did talk about design interventions for rainwater runoff. It's on page 43 of the report, and I'm just wondering if we can confirm if the plan is in fact to introduce those interventions into the actual specifications for the application.
Mr. Green.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to Councillor Patterson. Obviously, the letter that attached attached to the staff report that addresses how that rainwater will be diverted into the sort of the natural vegetation. Obviously, that would form part of the development permit should council approve the application this evening, and so that would form part of the permit that is issued by the district.
Thank you. Councillor Braithwaite.
Thank you so much, Chair, and through you to staff. I'm wondering if we know about how many similarly situated shoreline lots could potentially seek a similar development. Yeah, that would be my first question, please.
Thank you, Mr. Green.
Through your chair to Councillor Braithwaite, I don't know the exact number, but the entire shoreline is a designated development permit area for shorelines that is measured 15 metres from the natural boundary, above the natural boundary and also below the natural boundary. And so, yeah, I wouldn't have the exact number of lots, but yeah, there are, the district has issued in the past, previously issued development permits in the environmental DPA. So, for example, in 2024, the adjacent property at 291 King George Terrace for 3 single-family dwellings also encroached into that environmental DPA. And earlier this year, council also received an approved environmental development permit for 1933 Crescent Road for a new deck and retaining wall within that environmental DPA.
Thank you, Mr. Green.
Thank
Please
you,
proceed.
and through you, Chair. So I'm wondering if we know how much shading will actually occur beneath the structure and how confident the QEP is that the vegetation and hydrology would basically remain substantially unaffected underneath there. Do we have any idea of that from the report?
Mr. Green, you can probably answer to the best of your ability, but the proponent may have spoken directly with their QEP and may have additional information in that regard, but I'll leave it to you.
Through your chair to Councillor Braithwaite, obviously from staff's perspective, in this case, on an environmental DP, we are very much reliant on the registered professional. In this case, we have a report and a letter submitted by a registered professional biologist, and therefore we are, essentially reviewed that letter and confirm the conclusions of that letter and report.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you so much, and through you. Yeah, it kind of makes me wonder whether we should be eventually directing staff to whether a formal marine shoreline setback would be added to the zoning bylaw to provide maybe clearer guidance for future applications, because there's so many questions that come up around this. My other question might be, is post-construction environmental monitoring required? And if so, do they have to give a report back to us, or is it up to us as a municipality to kind of follow through on that?
Mr. Green.
Through your chair to Councillor Braithwaite, we don't have a formal reporting mechanism in place. We don't require a condition assessment to be submitted, 12 or 24 months down the road. Obviously, we always have the ability to enforce that development permit that is registered as a charge on title, and so we do always have the ability, if we think that DP has not been followed, either at time of building permit or post building permit and post occupancy, the ability to enforce that development permit.
Thank you, Councillor Braithwaite. Councillor Smart, please.
Thank you. Through your chair to staff, my first question was where some differences are existing right now between the drawings and the report. Does the report supersede the drawings, or do the drawings supersede the report?
Mr. Green.
Well, both would be attached to the permit, acknowledging that, some of the details may still need to be undertaken at building permit stage in relation to whether those columns are steel or concrete. From staff's perspective, from an environmental DP, we're not, it's not a form and character development permit. This is not understanding the materials being used in terms of the construction. And so at time of building permit, the applicant, if they have a structural engineer involved at the building permit stage, which we haven't necessarily requested, any structural drawings for an environmental DP, therefore there could be some changes, and there is some flexibility within that permit to change the columns or change the form and character of the design, given that those aren't being controlled through this permit.
Thank you. My other question through you, Chair, to staff is just with regards to the site plan. I would anticipate that the 1.5 meter rear setback would be from the rear legal property line and not the natural boundary that's shown on the applicant's site plan. We don't currently appear to have a site plan that shows the angular rear property line and its relevant 1.5 meter setback. And when I look at the district map, it almost makes it, on the aerial, it makes it look like that line is quite close to the bedrock outcropping, but I know that that is not an accurate map entirely. So I guess what I was wondering to know is, does staff actually have the distance from the actual 1.5 meter setback from that legal rear property line, so that we know what the distance is from the ADU to that setback?
Mr. Green.
Through the chair to Councillor Smart. Obviously, there was in our zoning bylaw we have a 1.5 metre rear setback to the property line. However, from an environmental development perspective, what's more of concern is how much from is the property located within, first of all, within that 50-metre setback, and that 50-metre setback is measured not from the property line, but it's measured from the natural boundary which is registered on title. And so we know from the survey plan that was submitted that they are well beyond that 1.5 metres, and so that's almost irrelevant in this case. What we're more concerned about is what is the distance from the natural boundary to confirm that they are within that environmental DPA, and to understand almost how significant of an encroachment within that environmental DPA.
Please proceed, Councillor.
Through you, Chair, just a follow-up. So it obviously maybe is, as you say, not to the purview of our environmental discussion right now, but I guess I just, looking at the siting of that ADU, I guess as someone reviewing this item, I guess I wanted the confidence that the building location is located actually within the setbacks. And so I guess I'm hearing that staff is confident about that.
Please go ahead, Mr. Green.
Yeah, through you, Chair, we are staff are confident that they are beyond that 1.5 metre rear setback for an ADU, and the survey plan, whilst it doesn't say the property line at the present natural boundary as per plan 102R, will be the same as the property line.
Please proceed, Councillor Smart.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Chair, and not to get too much into the weeds, but the property line is clearly shown as rectangular, but the natural boundary is curved, and so they're two very different things. But hearing that staff is still confident about the building setback. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smart. Any other questions for staff? Seeing none, I do not have any questions at this time. Then I would seek a motion from this table. The staff recommendation is to approve the DP as presented.
I'm happy to move that council approves the development permit DP 000068 for the property located at 295 King George Terrace.
Thank you very much.
And I will second that for discussion purposes.
Moved and
Thank you.
seconded. Motion is on the floor. Discussion. Councillor Green.
Thank you. I'll take the plunge, the first plunge. This is a difficult one, and I have certainly struggled with it because I see it from 3 vantage points, and it's all about managing risk. Managing risk on the environmental side in terms of foreshore health and well-being, managing risk on the provincial housing legislation in terms of what is expected, and managing risk around precedent setting. So those are the 3 big concerns for me, and I'm still thinking those through, but I see this as a much more much more of a risk-taking application than I've seen in a while. And I am concerned that if this sets a precedent, we will face other issues down the road on foreshore development. So those are my concerns at the moment, but I'm anxious to hear from my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Mayor Murdoch, I did not give you the opportunity to motivate. I apologize. Please proceed.
Oh, no, I didn't raise my hand until after, so there's no problem at all. No, I'm happy to support the application. I think actually Councillor Green framed it very well. I think these are the concerns we think about. We do want to enable housing to happen. We do want to make sure that we've allocated, we expanded the width of the DPA a number of years ago just so that we could contemplate the entirety of the environmental area as we looked at potential development. And the ask was really not to degrade the environment, and hence the environmental review by professionals process. Every lot is very different, and that's the reason for that review. This is a fairly unique, it is a very unique lot. It's very steep. It's very bare rock. There's almost no native plants on it. There is some invasive plants on there, but it's very much a very cliff-like environment. And I think what the effort's gone to make sure that that sort of rock interface is maintained and taken care of. It's not untouched, but that's not the ask of the DPA in my mind. The ask is, if we're allowing development in that area, is it maintaining or improving the environment? And I have a hard time looking at this and thinking it doesn't, given the benefit of having additional housing in a sub 1,000 square foot ADU is a real benefit to the community in my mind. I do think that the very minor impact on the environment in this particular location, in this particular space, is reasonable. So I'll leave it there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mayor Murdoch. I have Councillor Braithwaite next. And Smart.
Thanks very much, Chair. And thanks also to Councillor Green for her comments as well. If I do support this moving forward, I just want it clearly understood that it's because I believe the application before us has been substantially revised, and because of the planning rationale and policy considerations outlined by staff, it leans itself towards support. But what I would say is that while applicants are certainly entitled to legal representation and advocacy, council decisions should be grounded in good planning and fairness, not on perceived pressure arising from legal correspondence that we receive. And again, I believe that if we want stronger shoreline protection and to see changes, then we should add a more formal marine shoreline setback, and it should be added to the zoning bylaw to provide us clearer guidance for future applications. And I think that's the direction that we should go after this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Braithwaite. Councillor Smart.
Yeah, thank you. I do echo a lot of what Councillor Braithwaite just shared. I will be supporting the application because I do feel like it currently meets our shoreline development permit guidelines, but I do think that's a further conversation that council should really have. But I would like to propose an amendment. And the amendment would be that the drawings be revised to state no additional fill under ADU, natural grade preserved throughout.
Amendment moved and seconded. I guess I will just refer that to staff, or at least ask that question of staff as to whether or not the direction is clear and in alignment with typical standards that we might prescribe in the DPA.
Through the chair to Councillor Smart, I think that would be a reasonable request that is relevant to this application.
The amendment is moved and seconded. Debate on the amendment. Oh, please motivate your Councillor Smart.
I just wanted to quickly motivate. I really appreciated the applicant at our last meeting confirmed that this was the intent of the drawings, even though for myself it wasn't clear in the drawings, and so I just wanted to make sure that this piece of information was carried forward with the drawing set.
Thank you, Councillor Smart. Further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, then I will call the question on the amendment. All in favor? Any opposed? So that carries. So now we're back to the main motion on the floor. Any further discussion of the main motion with respect to the approval of the DP? Councillor Watson.
Yeah, just to follow along the same line of commentary from Councillor Braithwaite and Councillor Smart, I think that this application now does meet the requirements and the guidelines, and so I will vote in support of it, but I think it has raised a bigger issue for council around the fact that we really are not protecting our shoreline in the way that we thought we were when this application came to us, and so that it behooves us, I think, as a council to do something about that.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Before I go, I'll go to Councillor Patterson for a first time, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And of course, I seconded this for discussion purposes, but I agree with much of what has been said around the table. But the application as it has come back to us, I do appreciate the reduction in size of the ADU to limit the encroachment on the DPA, and and it is now, there's no variances in it, so that has been done. Also, I think with the professional report that has been provided and the design intervention for rainwater runoff, that again improves the application that has come back to us. But I do agree with others around the council table that this does bring back to council, I think, further work that could be done to strengthen our protection of the shorelines going forward. But I will support the application as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Before I go to Councillor Green for a second time, I'll just make my comments, and at the risk of sounding repetitive, I concur with much of what has been said. I think that there's been a substantive improvement to what's been presented in front of us. There's been additional information provided from the qualified environmental professional, and I also concur with many of the comments made about potentially looking at additional standards for the DPA in order to accomplish the outcome that that council is seeming to want to achieve. So, and I'm of similar mind. But Councillor Green, please.
Thank you. Thank you. And very briefly, I will be supporting the motion, but I really appreciate the comments of my colleagues at the table, and I do believe that we need to take measures to strengthen our protection of the marine foreshore in Oak Bay, because half of our community is covered by foreshore. So I think we have a huge obligation here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Green. Councillor Smart.
Thank you. If possible, through you, Chair, I just wanted to potentially ask a question through you to staff just to clarify, because my understanding is that this application does encroach into the DPA to the same extent as the previous application. So I just want to make sure that all of council has the correct information. If it's possible for staff to clarify the encroachment and size of this footprint versus the previous, I think it would be great if council was just aware. Thank you.
Thank you, Smart. Councillor Smart, I think that's in order. So maybe I'll put that question to staff. Is the extent of the encroachment in the revised proposal the same as the original?
Through the chair to Councillor Smart, yes, correct. It is the same encroachment into the DPA. However, the footprint of the ADU has reduced in size. I can't remember exactly what the square footage of the previous proposal. I think it was just over 1,000 square feet, but this is now 954 square feet. Obviously, the applicant could confirm if that's of relevance to council.
Was that adequate?
That's sufficient for me. I just wanted to make sure that we were all have accurate information in front of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you to staff. Seeing no further hands, then I'm prepared to call the question on the motion in front of us to approve the DP. All those in favor? And any opposed? Opposed? It carries unanimously. Thank you very much to staff. Thank you very much. I appreciate that discussion. Moving on to item 4.2, which is council remuneration bylaw. This has received first 3 readings, so we're now moving to adoption. So I would ask that somebody move the motion.
I'll move that the council remuneration bylaw number 4966/2026 be adopted.
Moved and seconded. Thank you very much. don't generally debate on adoption, but this is an opportunity for sober second thought, as it always is. Any comments on the motion on the floor or any feedback? Seeing none, then I will call the question. All in favor? And any opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 4.3, appointment of election officers. I believe that, I don't think there's a lot of preamble being presented here by staff. I think the content of the report is fairly straightforward, but I believe Ms. Anderson can answer any questions that are on this. I don't, there was not a preliminary presentation scheduled for this one, but if anybody has any questions, staff are available. So otherwise, I will seek a motion as laid out here.
Move the staff recommendation.
Moved
Second.
and seconded. Any discussion on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. Moving on to an item of probably a little bit more detail. 4.4 is Upland sewer separation water main replacement. I believe we're calling on Mr. Rennick to introduce this item. Mr. Rennick.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good evening, Council. The matter before you tonight is related to the Upland sewer separation and water main replacement project. When this project was initially scoped and awarded by Council, there were some provisional items in the contract for if rock was encountered, if additional hydro excavation was required, that ultimately those items that we had contingency for did not end up happening. There's approximately $1.4 million of unspent funds in Council's originally approved scope. At Council's election, that could be returned to reserves. However, there are opportunities to do some additional paving and to address some critical structural failures in the sanitary sewer network. So in accordance with purchasing policy, Council approval is being sought to approve some change orders to expand the scope of the project and use those funds that were already allocated to the project just to a slightly different purpose on the same project. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rennick. Questions for Mr. Rennick? Councillor Watson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Rennick. I appreciate you looking for good opportunities to spend money. I did want to understand with respect to the spot repairs that you identify, I think two sort of major and 11 minor. What, if that work goes ahead, what does it do to the useful life of the asset after that work is done? And what would that council then expect in terms of future work on that particular sewer line, say, over whatever that horizon is that you're evaluating priorities for?
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Mr. Rennick.
Through the chair, it's difficult to put an exact figure on how many additional years of useful life you'll get out of a spot repair. Ultimately, what we try to do with the sanitary sewer assets whenever possible is camera inspect them and find where they have defects, and essentially, if we can, address them through spot repairs as opposed to doing a full conventional dig. It generally is a better use of our money. Really, what would be a prudent practice would be to do regular camera inspection, every 10 years, every 15 years, for example, to identify these high priority defects and fix them. So as I say, I can't put an exact, this will buy you another 10 years, another 15 years, but it's a prudent intervention to prevent the risk of backups or failures from these specific locations.
Thank you, Mr. Rennick.
Yeah, thank you. I have a couple more questions.
Please.
Just continuing on that particular issue. For the new infrastructure that's gone in under McNeil, which includes some sewer line, does it not, for a segment of it, if I got that right? What do you expect for that? I know this is an old line that you're doing repairs to. What do you expect in terms of useful life for a newly installed line in 2026?
Mr. Rennick.
The expected service life for new PVC sewers is 90 to 100 years.
Thank you. And then one other question. In terms of your proposals, road resurfacing and new asphalt services, how will your experience with how trenching in this major project has affected kind of road surface life? How will it affect future scope and tendering for underground utilities work that's going on? I think it sounds like reading the report, something's occurred that you probably didn't anticipate when you were initially tendering this work. And so if you could just comment on that, please.
Mr. Rennick.
Through the chair, the scope of this project was significantly larger than a lot of the other capital projects that we deliver. This was a $19 million project when typically our projects are in the $5, $6, $7 million range. As council is aware, there's a very long history on this project, multiple iterations, and ultimately the scope was kept as tight as possible to meet the provincial requirement to separate the sewers ahead of the end of 2025, recognizing that we were relying on grants. So on an ordinary project, what we would do on a McNeil, for example, is assess the state of the asphalt at the start of the job, look at how much trench is going to be taken out, and if most of the road surface is in acceptable shape, Windsor is a really good example where we did the sanitary sewer up the middle of Windsor a couple of years ago, and it was just reinstated. We did not approach council to do a full resurface of Windsor Road because the rest of the road was in fine shape. So I would say that the only real change on this one was Exeter. Exeter was already scoped to have the asphalt removed, but it was kind of a surprise that, it was proposed for an overlay. It was kind of a surprise that actually the asphalt is too bad to be overlaid.
Okay, so it kind of a one-off, like, all right, thank you very much, that's helpful.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. I have Councillor Braithwaite next.
Thanks so much, Chair. Well, first off, I think that staff deserves some credit here because too often municipalities spend every available dollar simply because it exists. But in this case, you know, you've brought back a project that's under budget. I'm not sure how you did that, but thank you. I don't think I've ever seen that in all my time on council, so that's pretty amazing. So kudos to you and your staff for that. Maybe you can work your magic on other projects as well. But what I would like to ask about is around the deciding where this money should go. Is the pricing, would rebidding any portion of this create any more savings, or is it that we should still be going through Island Asphalt and Windley without going to procurement for anything, for that services from others?
Mr. Rennick.
Through the chair, there would be some challenges of running a procurement. We do ultimately control the scope of work, but if we were to take things from Windley's scope of work and re-tender them, there could be an accusation that we were being unfair to Windley. Removing the work from their scope and giving it to a contractor that we already have on contract with Island Asphalt is less risky from that perspective.
Thank you, Mr. Rennick. Please proceed.
Thank you so much, and through you, Chair. Yeah, thanks for that answer. I'm just wondering then, would there be any future projects that would compete for those, if we put this in reserves instead, would there be any future projects that would compete for those reserves?
Mr. Rennick.
Through the chair, essentially all of our capital projects are funded out of our capital works reserve. And so I think there's really two ways of looking at that. It's these funds were allocated for this project. You could treat it as a windfall, return it to reserves, and use it to fund other projects. Or you could say, well, this is really kind of just a variation of the project that council had originally scoped and originally budgeted.
Thank you, Mr. Rennick.
Thank you so much, and I agree, so thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Braithwaite. I have Mayor Murdoch next.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Just the only question I had on this, I'm supportive of the suggestion. I think certainly the beach drive portion is so used for community events like marathons and Tour de Victoria and all these things, and used every day by cyclists and riders and so forth alike. So I guess the only question I really had on this one is that if we're bringing in asphalt crews, I know sometimes it doesn't make sense to kind of deal with some of the little odds and ends, and there's a number of little dead-end streets. I see that on this map, both the Humber Road and others are not. There's little sort of, quarter block, eighth block long things that run down to the water. included, but I'm just wondering if it actually makes sense if the crews are there. This might be the least expensive time to tap up, and I can think there's a few. There's Humber and Rutland, Surrey and Tarn that are all little, very short roads. I'm just curious if the staff have looked at those, done any assessment of their state. It looks like they have for Humber because it's on the map, but just curious about the other ones if they've contemplated, minor expansion of the scope to just deal with those while the crews are around.
Thank you, Mayor Murdoch. Mr. Rennick.
Through the chair to Mayor Murdoch. As Mayor Murdoch notes, Humber Road is on the map to essentially have the trench repaved, not to do the full width asphalt. That's because it's not a very busy road and the rest of the asphalt is in fairly good shape. The other roads that Mayor Murdoch referenced, Tarn Place, Surrey Road, those are actually outside of the scope of the project. Those roads were not disturbed as part of this project. And so while I understand the potential cost savings argument, ultimately those roads are competing with every other road in Oak Bay. One could, if they're outside of the scope of the project, that's why they're not included.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you for that answer, Mr. Rennick, and back to you, Chair.
Oh, thank you, Mayor Murdoch. Further questions for Mr. Rennick at this time? Then I would seek a motion from this table.
Do you want, Chair, would you like each recommendation individually or all together?
I think probably just for accuracy, we should probably move them separately, Councillor Braithwaite.
I'll move recommendation number 1. I'm assuming you don't want it read out.
No, that's just to approve the modification of the scope of work. Seconded. Any motion? Councillor Green. Oh, never mind. Moved and seconded. Okay, so this is component number 1 of the staff recommendation about the modification to the scope of work. Any discussion on that component? Seeing none, I will call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? None opposed.
And then I would move recommendation number 2 to approve the change order to the Windley contract.
Thank you very much. Moved and seconded. Discussion on the second component of the staff recommendation. Seeing none, I will call the question. All in favor? And any opposed? None opposed.
And then lastly, I would remove the third recommendation to authorize the Chief Administrative Officer to execute the change order on behalf of the district.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Mayor Murdoch, I see your hand. Is that is that a stale hand?
Sorry.
Did I miss you?
If I now that it's been passed, I'm just hoping you could I could through you, Chair, ask a question of staff about timelines for anticipated for completion.
I think that's in order. Mr. Rennick, can you speak to timelines now that this is moving forward?
Thank you. Through the chair to Mayor Murdoch, the work is proceeding. We will be executing the change order right away, and we are working with Windley on acceleration and on getting updated schedules. And as soon as we have something a little bit more concrete, we will share that out both through council and to the public through the project website.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rennick. And before we leave this item, I would also take the opportunity, as Councillor Braithwaite has referred to, this is a project of exceptional size and complexity. And so I think it behooves us to, mention once more for the public what an achievement it is to have reached this point. Just the scope of project as it was contemplated some 7 or 8 years plus ago was extensive, and to arrive at this point with essentially money left over is an exceptional accomplishment on behalf of the staff team. So I just wanted to say thank you again for that. Moving on to item 4.5 is accessibility plan implementation strategy. This is with Ms. Anderson.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Good evening, members of council. The report before you introduces the accessibility plan implementation strategy. The strategy was developed from the accessibility plan, which was adopted by council in 2025. The accessibility plan identified 16 barriers across the organization, and following adoption of the plan, staff were directed to develop an implementation strategy to address the barriers. To develop the strategy, a consultant was retained to support a structured review process. The work included research into best practices and interviews with all district department heads. The developed strategy translated the 16 barriers identified in the plan into 28 implementation actions and provides a practical approach for embedding accessibility into the district's ongoing practices. The strategy is intended to do three things. First, it shows how the district is currently making meaningful progress and what actions are being advanced through existing work plans and budgets. Second, it identifies actions which would require future council consideration for resourcing. And thirdly, it provides an accountability measure which ensures that council, the Accessibility Advisory Committee, and the public are provided annual updates on disability and accessibility actions. Following council's receipt of the report this evening, staff will provide the strategy and the proposed accessibility lens to the Accessibility Advisory Committee for feedback as part of the next phase of implementation. We are here to receive feedback and answer any questions, and our consultant, Ms. Winter, has joined us online this evening.
Thank you very much, Ms. Anderson. And as noted, Ms. Winter is online. Thank you for joining us and taking the time. Do we have questions for staff? Can I have Councillor Green and Councillor Patterson?
Thank you, and through you, thank you very much for the report, and I'm very pleased to see it as well. And I just had a minor question. That was on page 3. It mentions installing a hearing loop in council chambers to improve accessibility for residents with hearing disabilities. This is quite a critical issue, and I'm really pleased to see that. And I was just wondering, has that been done, or is there a timeline in mind? Thank you.
Ms. Anderson.
Yes, thank you, through the chair. It is active right now. There is a hearing loop. If someone was to come in, they could connect with it.
Thank you, that's great news.
Ask and you shall receive, Councillor Green. Anything further? Councillor Patterson, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. 4, so it's nice to see catching up now. But I do have a question around the initiatives for future consideration for 2029 and 2030. And I guess that is on page 4 of 52. And I'm just wondering what the rationale is for not considering public parking and bus stop review with the active transportation program that is already underway, really. So, and because particularly transit stops are being affected by active transportation routes throughout the whole region, and are more being addressed as an afterthought as we are postponing a decision on this too. So I'm wondering if staff could just present the rationale for how those decisions are made.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Ms. Anderson, that may be a question for you or maybe the consultant. So.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. Through you, Chair. We are fortunate that Mr. Rennick, Director Rennick, is in attendance tonight. So if he had anything to build on that question.
Mr. Rennick, please.
Thank you, through the chair. As it is noted in the report, an accessible parking and bus stop review would be a fairly significant undertaking as it was initially scoped. Would require an inventory of all accessible parking spaces, both in municipal lots and on street locations. And the review of bus stop amenities would really involve consultation with BC Transit as well as coordination with regional partners. And so when we were reviewing this plan, just based on the scope of the work and the other items that are in the work plan, we felt that was one that needed to be deferred.
Thank you, Mr. Rennick. Follow-up question, Councillor Patterson?
Yeah, I guess as a follow-up to that then, if we are delaying the review of this until that point in time, when some of the active transportation routes could already have been implemented or planned, it seems short-sighted to me to not consider these things along with the planning for any routes that are being considered, so that we're not progressing to a point where we will be limited or prevented in the future from addressing the situation in a way that, both from a funding and a practicality and safety standpoint, are managed effectively with active transportation. So I wouldn't want it to prevent us in the future, or cause problems, or have to backtrack on some of the active transportation that is planned for the community if we have to go back and modify at a later date, particularly some of the transit stops. And I say this because I'm experiencing it throughout so much of the region, and so I do find that disappointing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Not sure there's, well, if staff wishes to respond, please go ahead, Mr. Rennick.
Through the chair, deferring a comprehensive review does not preclude doing specific targeted reviews for those pieces of infrastructure that would be affected by a particular route. There were challenges in some implementations in the past. For instance, the floating bus islands on Pandora in City of Victoria. That's no longer considered best practice. And so certainly we would be able to undertake, as I said, we would be able to undertake review of how specific projects affected specific transit stops without necessarily having to undertake the comprehensive review.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rennick. I have Councillor Braithwaite and Smart.
Thanks so much, Chair, and through you. The report really repeatedly talks about accessibility should become embedded into all municipal decision-making through an accessibility lens. And I think that sounds really positive. That's great. But it's a little bit vague too. So I'm wondering how the accessibility lens practically will work in the staff reports for decision-making. Will it be a checklist or something like that, or do we know that yet?
Ms. Anderson.
Yes, thank you through the chair. Similar to the financial impacts, there will be a box where we will list the accessible impacts.
Please proceed.
Thank you so much. And then we talked, in the report, it talked about proposing an IDEA position. And I'm not sure if that would be temporary or permanent staffing. And I'm wondering if we know what the cost and scope yet around something like that, or an estimate of the cost and scope around that would be. If not, I totally understand. It's just out of curiosity.
Ms. Hunt, I'll give you the answer to the best of your ability.
Yes, we don't have the actual cost and scope of that yet, but originally staff were looking at hiring a consultant to do a variety of this work, and I think that looking at whether a temporary staff position for a couple of years may be able to come in and do that instead of a consultant or a variety of consultants, there may be some benefits to that approach, and in advance of the budget process, we would be approaching council with those options.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you so much, Chair. And I guess that's the same, because the report also talks about how many future items are low, medium, or high cost, but without detailed estimates yet, obviously. But do we know perhaps when we might receive some of the more detailed estimates around this, or do we have to wait until we're further down the road?
Ms. Hunt.
Yeah, thank you very much. Through the chair to Councillor Braithwaite, we would be bringing those forward individually as part of the budget process, where we would have, defined scope and a budget, and council will be considering it at that time.
Thank you, Ms. Hunt. Councillor Smart, please.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Chair, to staff, just actually building upon a lot of what has been discussed already, but just a little bit further on looking at this amazing list, and it's so great to have this in front of us. Just wanting to understand beyond the update checkbox on staff reports, which sounds amazing. Just wondering about the sort of operational versus council involvement decisions with a lot of things on this list. So to give a particular example, developing a district-wide AI use policy, it looks like that's being considered operational. And I'm wondering, is today a day you would want feedback on anything in this report that council wanted to be more involved with, or is the assumption really at this point that this is all operational and that it will be just communicated out to the public? Thank you.
Ms. Anderson or Ms. Hunt.
Thank you, through the chair, to Councillor Smart. Certainly looking for any feedback that council has. I think my question to you is whether or not you're referring to items that we've already sort of deemed as underway and operational, or future items. But certainly, would like to hear your thoughts around any of the items that are on the list.
Go ahead, Councillor Smart.
Thank you. And are we doing questions and comments at the same time right now, Chair?
I guess if it's relevant to your point that you're pursuing here, Councillor Smart, you could make a comment for sure.
No, thank you. I would just add a comment then that I think quite a few councillors around this table attended some informative sessions on the use of AI at a recent conference, and I do think there's a lot of interest at this table and being a part of the conversation about how that is used. My other question was just with regards to bus stop accessibility, and my question, just to expand upon what's been discussed already. I understand BC Transit actually does have quite a comprehensive program where they even list at the bottom of each bus stop sign whether or not it's deemed accessible or not. So I was wondering, did staff see the district's role in bus stop accessibility really being almost an advocacy project of like looking at how many stops weren't accessible and trying to promote the desire for those in Oak Bay? I'm just wondering what staff saw as our role versus what BC Transit is already doing from an accessibility standpoint.
Thank you, Council. I'm not sure where best to direct that. We'll start with Mr. Rennick. Thank you, Mr. Rennick.
Thank you, Chair. Accessibility of bus stops is really a partnership between the district and BC Transit. We are a recipient of their shelter program, where when we are replacing the shelters, it's done through cost sharing between BC Transit and the district. There's a lot that goes into making a transit stop accessible, and some of that work does fall on the municipality, and it can be things like, is the sidewalk that people need to take to get to the bus shelter smooth and barrier free? We deal with challenges around the geometry for buses approaching the bus stop outside of Pharmasave as to whether or not they can safely deploy the ramp. So I would say that there's more than just an advocacy piece there. There is work for staff there as well.
Thank you, Mr. Rennick. Councillor Watson.
Thank you. I have a question, I think first for maybe Ms. Hunt and then one for Mr. Rennick, actually. The immediate actions in the implementation strategy are, I would say, maybe fair to say, fairly diffusely distributed throughout the organization. And I just wanted to understand a little bit how the organization will maintain focus and accountability for the things that are listed. It's a fairly long list of things that are kind of in assigned to departments in moving forward the strategies that have come out of the accessibility plan. So if you could just comment on that.
Ms. Anderson.
Yes, thank you, through the chair. Appended to the strategy is the steps and the action plan, which we will bring to council annually, and that outlines, there's a checkbox for the status and progress notes of each action, and we will be bringing it to the Accessibility Advisory Committee prior to council each year.
Sorry, I missed that. The report was quite long. I obviously missed it. Is that right at the end of the report? Okay, I'm so sorry. Okay. My only other question, and it's just gets back to some of the report's reflection on the fact that in terms of ongoing things that we're already doing, let me just get the page reference so I get this right, page 14 of 52. Here we go. In terms of accessibility improvements in the physical environment, both the staff report and the consultant's report talk about our adherence in work to the BC Active Transportation Design Guide when designing sidewalks, trails, and other public infrastructure. And I just wanted to ask Mr. Rennick, within the last few months, council actually changed our direction in that regard because we adopted a motion that the previously requested constraints of a default design standard be removed when developing defined detailed plans for the active transportation network. And I just wondered if there's any conflict between what we're saying we're doing consistently here and the new direction that council gave around doing that design. Do we need to revisit that new direction?
Mr. Rennick.
Through the chair, typically the types of accessible infrastructure that have been being added recently are the tactile warning surface indicators that were installed at the Wilmot Crosswalk, for example. It's things like audibles on the traffic signals. So I don't see those as being in conflict with council's motion regarding all ages and abilities cycling infrastructure.
Thank you. I just wanted to check about that.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Any further questions for staff? Councillor Patterson.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and through you too. I guess this is really about website development and accessibility. And so I'm wondering if staff can just confirm what we will be using for accessibility checkers on color contrast in the either documents on the website or through hard copies.
Ms. Anderson.
Thank you, through the chair. The website is managed through our Strategic Initiatives Department, so I don't have that information on hand, but I can certainly get it for you.
Thank you, and if I might just continue, Chair, because I notice this in Saanich too with their accessibility program that they have, that the program document, when you go to the website, it does all comply with the color contrast WebAIM. And so it is very pleasant to read visually, but it's not carried through. It is not carried throughout their website, probably because it would not make the website as interesting. So I don't know what progress has been made in making it adaptable, but I think that it is something that is worth considering because it does make it much easier and much pleasanter to read. Thank you.
Noted, Councillor Patterson. Thank you. Any other further questions for staff? Seeing none, then I would seek a motion.
I'll move receipt.
Moved, and do we have a seconder? Seconded. Very good. Do you wish to motivate, Councillor Braithwaite?
No, just thank you very much to staff for the report, and I'm happy to support it.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, then sorry, Councillor Watson, go ahead.
Yes, just a question for staff. So this will be going to the Accessibility Advisory Committee within I think it's coming up real soon, next week or so. Okay,
I am
great.
seeing
Thanks.
nodding heads, and so that will be confirmed. Councillor Green.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say this is a great body of work, a long time coming, and I really appreciate all the staff support as well as councillor support on this initiative. I think it's going to have a great deal of meaning for residents who require this kind of additional support. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Agreed. I will call the question. All in favor? And any opposed? None opposed. Carries. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Anderson and staff. Moving on to section 5 of the agenda. These are special meeting matters that are subject to public input. The next couple of items are subject to public input. First of these is item 5.1, which is sign bylaw amendments for election signs. And Mr. Rennick will be introducing. Please proceed, Mr. Rennick.
Thank you, Chair. As noted in the report, Council had initially seen a draft bylaw limiting the number of locations on public boulevards where election signs could be placed. That was presented to Council at the evening of April 27th. At that meeting, Council passed a motion seeking some modifications to the location map Following a review, staff removed 2 of the locations that had been originally proposed due to sightline consideration and have added an additional 4 locations. So we are now proposing a total of 11 locations, and based on the figure on page 2, as much as possible, tried to strike a geographic balance of covering the entire district. Unfortunately, we did find that South Oak Bay just does not have the traffic islands or the large boulevards, and so we had to get a little more creative with locations, but this is the revised report as per council's direction, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rennick. Questions for Mr. Rennick on the report? Councillor Smart.
Oh, thank you. Through you, Chair, to staff. Just one question. One of the locations at Estevan and East Down, in the last election, signs were always removed from this location. I think I tried 3 times, and it wasn't just my signs, everybody's signs were always taken down. And so being that this is actually going to be a suggested location, does staff have some way that they could support signs? Apparently the, criminal offense with up to 2 years maximum prison sentence isn't enough for whatever this person who doesn't want them there. So can the district place a sign that says election signs can go here, or can we do something to support that location? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rennick.
Through the chair, that actually I did not know that signs were being removed from that location, but I'm seeing nods from the other members of council. So to be clear, that was not being removed by district staff. That was a neighbor that was doing that. I think that we could take it away and we could discuss some strategies, but I agree with Councillor Smart's point that the fact that it's a criminal offense ought to be a deterrence enough. But yes, we can take that away.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rennick. Councillor Smart.
Yeah, just one further question. So in reviewing the existing sign bylaw, it looks like we do currently allow signs technically on municipal land in front of schools when it's not voting days. However, this proposed report, it appears, would change this to not allow signs on municipal lands in front of school properties. And so I just wanted staff to confirm my understanding of how this proposal would change that, just in light of the new way that school trustee elections are happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smart. Mr. Rennick.
Through the chair, the current bylaw prohibits the placement of signs on boulevards where municipal facilities are located, and it lists a number of examples. It would be my interpretation that even if the municipality is the owner on title of school district lands, that those boulevards would be allowed for election signs under the current bylaw because they are not municipal facilities. If the proposed bylaw that's attached to the staff report were to be adopted, it is correct that school district boulevards in front of school districts would no longer be locations for election signs.
Thank you, Mr. Rennick. Further questions for Mr. Rennick? Councillor Braithwaite.
Thanks very much. And through you, Chair, I'm just wondering, as far as the waterfront locations go, there's one that's substantially larger than many of the other areas. And I'm wondering if, number one, we kind of looked at how scenic and tourism impacts might be considered for waterfront locations, and if there would be a maximum size considered for sign locations along the waterfront, like as far as not going from, in this particular case, from, I think it's Barrettsford to Windsor Road. Thank you.
Mr. Rennick.
Through the chair, we did put in the draft bylaw that, did we actually put that in there? Yes, thank you. We did put in the draft bylaw that there would be 2 signs per candidate per location. Ultimately, it's difficult to predict how many candidates we might have in a given election. The concern was that if you constrain it to a very small area, are you now having conflicts where people are putting their signs on top of each other? I'm sensitive to the concerns that was raised in the correspondence that it would create a billboard effect, but ultimately, if you have 6 candidates, 2 signs each, 12 signs across that entire region, I don't think is going to create a significant amount of clutter.
Please proceed, Councillor.
I think perhaps in that location, the bigger thing would be when there's a windstorm, all of those signs are going to end up in the water probably because a lot of them are not, they're not really tied down so that they can't not blow away. And so I think that for me would be a bigger concern rather than the number of signs along there. It would be how easily they would get blown into the ocean and become an environmental concern.
No, okay. I was looking for the question in there, but that's okay. Any other questions for staff? Councillor Watson, please.
I'm not sure if it's a question and I don't actually know who to direct it to, but I just noted that in the bylaw, we've drafted a 4-foot height limit from natural grade for these election signs. But in our home-based business consultation, we're actually suggesting 4.5 feet as the height limit for signs on private property, or I guess they'd be in the public boulevard for home-based businesses. And there's a discrepancy there, which I think is an odd one, given that election signs are maybe just as important as signs advertising home-based businesses. And I wondered, maybe this is for Mr. Bowl, if at this point in time it would be possible to rethink that proposal in the home-based business bylaw consultation so that we have sign heights that are consistent.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Maybe I'll just, maybe I'll slightly redirect that again to Mr. Rennick and just ask whether or not there was, sort of what consideration was made between those two municipal standards and whether or not there are things that are informing those two heights differently, possibly.
Thank you. That was way better put. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Watson.
Thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Watson. When you look at the existing sign bylaw in Oak Bay, we do actually have a host of different sign sizes, sign regulations for the type of sign. For a lot of our signs, we don't actually specify a width and a height. For example, construction signs, they just have a sign area. Election signs were an exception where election signs did specifically have the requirement of 2 feet by 2 feet on public property. When we were writing this amendment, because we recognized that by limiting the locations to certain public boulevards, we might be introducing a sightline hazard. That was why we put in the 4 feet above natural grade, because that's a fairly standard, that's the level at which you want to ensure there's nothing blocking a sight triangle for a driver. I don't see that as being in conflict with the home-based business signs, which are likely to be on a lawn, and they're really only impacting a view of the house as opposed to potentially being at an intersection.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Further questions for staff? Do not see other questions arising. This is an item which is open for public input. So if there is anyone in the room or online that wishes to comment on this item, you are more than welcome to do so. I see somebody coming forward. So as always with comments to council, please state your name and your municipality of residence, and you will have up to 3 minutes to speak. Please proceed.
Hello. Thank you. My name is Anton Brackage. I'm a resident of Oak Bay. Restrictions on political speech should not be undertaken lightly. I still have not seen demonstrated a pressing need for this proposed amendment. I certainly do not think such a restriction should be made on purely scenic concerns. I also have to say, from my personal experience, I don't feel that the environmental concern holds a great deal of weight. Having been a candidate and a volunteer on multiple campaigns, I have not found that signs tend to come loose on their own and blow around a great deal. People do sometimes pull them up, which, as we've noted, is a criminal offense. And certainly, if people are deliberately sabotaging campaign signs, that should not be rewarded, in my view, by giving them the restrictions that they want on those signs. The arguments presented appear contradictory. There's little public demand for this change from what I've seen. In correspondence in the report, there's no evidence of significant safety issues caused by the status quo. And the report to council indicates that there is not expected to be a workplace or financial impact to the change. So everything else aside, is this really a good use of council or staff's time? I also note two of the previously proposed locations have now been removed as unsafe from the new map. I'm curious as to why this supposed hazard was missed before. And above all, I think I'm concerned about the appearance it creates of council potentially tipping the scales in an election in terms of where signs are located, how that benefits certain candidates. I was concerned to see a member of the public suggesting correspondence that one of the locations proposed appeared to favor a specific councillor. I'm not saying that's correct, but even that suspicion is damaging to the democratic process and to the public trust in it, and I see no benefit clearly to the proposed change that balances out that harm. A final note, we've heard a lot of talk about how this change would affect local elections, but I'm very curious as to how it would affect provincial and federal elections and campaign signs there as well. Regardless, while the new version of the proposed amendment appears to be an improvement insofar as it is less restrictive and more geographically balanced, I think that it was a mistake for council to go down this road in the first place, and continuing would be doubling down on that mistake. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brackage. Not seeing any hands online or anybody else in the room for public feedback, so I will bring it back to this table. Councillor Braithwaite, please.
Yeah, just a quick question that had come up from the comments just made, and it's to staff. I'm pretty sure that any rules that we change for municipal election signs do not roll over into provincial, but I would just like clarification from staff if that's true or not. Would it affect provincial election signs?
Mr. Rannick.
Through the chair, yes, it absolutely would, provincial and federal elections.
That's helpful because that's sometimes where we see more of a proliferation of signs, so that's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Green.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the correspondence and the comments tonight. I just did a quick scan myself today of the province and those communities who do have signage policy. And it's the City of Victoria, North Cowichan, Richmond, Surrey, Coquitlam, Nanaimo. Nanaimo also has size requirements on public space, and Cranbrook is looking at signage policy ahead of the 2026 election. So I want to make the point that this is not something unique or unusual to Oak Bay, that it is being practiced in other parts of the province. So that was my point, that I was curious myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. I appreciate those comments. At this stage, seeing no other feedback, then I would seek a motion from council. Councillor Patterson.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll move that signed bylaw number 3946, 1997, amendment bylaw number 4962, 2026 be read a first and second time.
So moved. Do I have a seconder?
Right, I'll second for discussion.
Seconded for discussion. Councillor Patterson, did you wish to motivate?
Yes, I think that staff have responded as they were directed to by council, and I think that they have attempted to ensure that the democratic process is intact, but also that there are guidelines for safety-related issues for traffic flow. I also think that I appreciate this being done ahead of time because the locations are clearly marked, and that will make it easier for any candidates who are placing signs. And just to some of the comments made, I will say that I don't think that I think in fact, my opinion is that this is more equalizes the process because it ensures that anyone that wants to participate, it puts everybody on an equal playing field so that we don't have one or two candidates that blanket the municipality in the public realm with signs, because of course we can still, they can still choose to work with residents within the community who may be quite willing to have signage placed on the boulevard in front of their homes. So to a certain degree, you know, there is some room for perhaps one or two candidates to have more signs. But I think in the public realm, it puts everybody on an equal playing field, and so I support it.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Further discussion on the motion on the floor. Councillor Watson, please.
Thank you. I will not be voting in support of the motion. I do appreciate that staff have done exactly what they were asked to do, and we've had a couple of rounds on this, but I'm really, I am all the more convinced, particularly after hearing Mr. Brackage's commentary tonight, that this is a solution in search of a problem. And that we will be doubling down on a mistake that we've already made by pursuing this. I think that there was no evidence of safety concerns, no nuisance complaints after the previous elections, and election signs are an important opportunity for incumbent and first-time candidates to let the community know that they're running for the important role of political office to govern the community. And I don't see any need to pull back what's already being done. I disagree with the assertion from one of the one letter writer that it is allowing these signs on municipal property on the public boulevard is free advertising. That would also be the case for any election signs that are put in front of people's homes. It would then be free advertising. I think it is free speech is what it is, and it's important. And I think that for first time, how do we know for how candidates may or may not be able to make themselves known to individual homeowners or property owners who'd like to take their signs. So I think that we need to leave things the way they were, and that's an important thing to do. This is a very short-term use of the public space, whether it's in front of people's homes on the public boulevard or whether it's on public property in the areas identified in these maps. And I think we're making really much ado about nothing to the detriment of allowing information to be shared about who would like to put themselves forward for the important position of candidacy for office.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. I have Mayor Murdoch next.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And I guess I'll make a couple of general quick comments. And I have a couple of suggested changes. And I think if you're amenable, I'll just do them by motion and we can have a quick talk about them one by one. But just my generalized comments here, I think it's a good discussion for us to have. I think there's an important point that's been raised about freedom of speech. And there are multiple ways that people, getting the word out that they are running for office. Signs are one way. I think the freedom of speech in two different ways, though. One, the primary purpose of election signs is that people who are politically engaged and want to show their support for a candidate use signs as that mechanism. That is their way of sharing to the community who they're supporting and driving that conversation in their neighborhood. It is a secondary purpose to my mind to have them as billboards or as just generalized signs, raising awareness. So I think they're both of value, but I think the primary purpose there is really for individuals. I do think it's reasonable, given that I do allow for public space, and I think the direction given to kind of for selection being around, being more cognizant of sightlines and safety, especially as we are more clear about the height of these signs. I know the question was asked about why were some taken off. The answer to that was because we are allowing these signs to be, election signs are a certain height. They do block views, and that creates some safety issues. So if you're amenable, I have just not very many, just a few suggested changes. And I think if it's okay, Chair, I might just make those. We can just discuss them quickly one by one, and I'll just motivate very quickly on each one to explain the rationale.
Just for clarity, Your Worship, so that would be in order. As described in the options in the staff report, we're talking, there are a couple of options outlined for either removal or addition of locations. Just for clarity, are you referring to the removal or addition of locations with your amendments?
In fact, I think most are just clarification of the drawings. So I'm gonna maybe we can give this to staff if they see if that's amenable within the second reading, or if that has to go back for the drawings to be amended.
Just hold one, thank you, Your Worship. I think Ms. Anderson or staff can comment on this at this time, so please go ahead, Ms. Anderson.
Thank you, Chair. Just to provide some procedure, the appropriate time to make amendments would be following first and second reading. So between second reading and third reading, you could do proposed amendments.
Okay. Then I will do that. I will wait for completion of, if second reading passes, then I've got some suggested changes that I think will help a little bit.
Okay, so just for clarification, Your Worship, you're referring to clarifications of the locations as outlined in the attachments to the staff report rather than additions or deletions?
I have I have both just amendments to the citing, and then some. I think it's worth throwing them on the patch for consideration for deletion, and I'll make clear what those are when I make the motions, if that's amenable. But I'll leave it for now. I understand procedurally what we should do here is, if there's support for this for second reading, I'll make those amendments after second reading.
Thank you, Mayor Murdoch. So just for clarity, we are at second reading of what is presented in the staff report. Further discussion or further debate, Councillor Smart.
Yeah, thank you. I won't be supporting first and second reading. I do support the increased amount of locations that we're seeing right now, but I don't support this whole exercise, being that in the last election there was not a single infraction. And I strongly believe that this does privilege everybody around this table to be making this decision right now, and so I don't find it appropriate. This is for new people that are coming in, new candidates that are running for council. They need to get their name out there, and public locations of election signs when they're starting a campaign is one of the easiest ways to do that. And limiting the ability to do that when we've had no complaints in the last municipal election does not feel appropriate to me. However, if this passes, I do also have one amendment to add a location that I will be putting forward.
Thank you, Councillor Smart. Councillor Braithwaite.
Thanks so very much, Chair. I brought this motion forward because election signage on public property has become, to me, an increasingly challenging issue for many municipalities. During election periods, we often see a large number of signs placed on boulevards, medians, and other public areas. While election signs are an important part of the democratic process, their placement on public land can sometimes create concerns around visual clutter, traffic safety, and accessibility. Our boulevards, parks, and streetscapes are shared public spaces. Reasonable limits on signage helps us ensure these spaces remain safe, accessible, and visually welcoming for everybody. Many municipalities, as Councillor Green has pointed out, across BC, have addressed this issue by introducing clearer rules for election signage. Cities such as Saanich, Richmond, Vancouver, Coquitlam, and Kelowna have implemented bylaws that either limit signs on public property or establish designated locations where signs can be placed. These approaches still allow candidates to communicate with voters while helping municipalities protect the quality and safety of their public spaces. Designated signs locations can actually improve fairness by ensuring each candidate has equal access to public space. Instead of a well-financed candidate being able to put 100 signs in one location, it equalizes it to only 2 per location, and everyone can do that. Importantly, the motion before council does not propose banning election signs. Signs would still be permitted on private property with the property owner's consent, which is where most campaign signage typically appears. What this motion asks is simply that staff review the current bylaw and bring forward options that could establish designated public locations and reasonable limits on signage in those areas, and they have. And this, to me, helps ensure fairness for candidates, reduce visual clutter in the public realm, and provide clearer rules for both campaigns and staff responsible for enforcement. Clear rules reduce complaints and enforcement challenges for staff, and reducing sign proliferation also reduces environmental waste associated with election cycles. I think this is a practical step and that other municipalities have taken and that we should take as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Braithwaite. I'll take the opportunity to speak to this. I'm not supporting the motion on the floor, as I have not supported the process from the very beginning. I feel that limitations on democratic expression, which election signs clearly are, regardless of interpretation of intent or interpretation of support or financing thereof, are a critical part of democratic expression and should only be limited and should only be modified under extraordinary conditions with a very strong rationale. And as we have heard repeatedly and as we have had confirmed, there was no such issues identified during the last municipal election, nor in any other election that I have been aware of in recent memory. So this is responding to an issue which has not been raised, which is it does not respond to a direct concern. It just does not respond to an issue, and it takes it fundamentally restricts the ability of political candidates to express themselves in a democratic way. So I've been adamantly opposed to the process from the very beginning, and I will continue to oppose it. So those are my comments. Any further discussion on second reading? Councillor Watson.
Yes, thank you. I did just want to say one more thing as a point of clarification. Election signs in front of people's homes are on the public property. They are in the public domain. And we are not placing any restrictions on those. And I just find this whole exercise quite mystifying, that we are giving, in effect, free rein to the use of public property in front of people's homes, and then we're restricting it in other municipal spaces. It's just incongruent to me.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Councillor Braithwaite for a second time.
Thank you, Chair. I think, if I may, putting a sign in front of someone's public property basically means that you have permission from that person. Nobody can just willy-nilly go and put a sign up in front of someone's house without the permission of that resident. And even if there's a sidewalk with a boulevard beside it, our rules state that that boulevard is considered a continuation of the house that is in front of it. And so they would need to be permission from that household to put a sign on that boulevard as well.
Thank you, Councillor Braithwaite. Councillor Patterson, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And I will just echo what Councillor Braithwaite has said. And previous councils made that concrete decision to require a homeowner's consent to put a sign on the boulevard because of complaints that the council of that day got about the overproliferation of signs throughout the community. So this is not a benign issue that hasn't been discussed before. It has. There was a decision made about that for exactly that reason. And I think the same concerns have been raised publicly about transit routes and the visibility that may be blocked if signs are not restricted to a reasonable height and reasonable number so as to not obstruct traffic flow. So I do support this because I think that it is in fact what this council and previous councils heard from members of the public, and that was to, yes, encourage the democratic process, but to not overdo the signage, and particularly in ways that blocked transportation routes in ways that were unsafe. And I think staff have responded with this report by doing exactly that. So I am supportive of it.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. I have Mayor Murdoch and then Councillor Green.
Yeah, having already spoken to this, I'll keep my comments short. I do appreciate the comments that have been made around the table. I think just for clarification, we already have a sign bylaw. What's being proposed here is to clarify by putting in explicitly where signs are allowed as opposed to giving general direction. I do think this probably does actually, in fact, impact federal and provincial elections a bit more because they're probably less familiar with the community, and this gives them a little bit more clarification and easier to find those locations that qualify. But that being said, I think there's a comment made that there was no issue in the last election, and it is perhaps true that there was no, I don't know, lawsuit or formal complaint. But I think anybody with common sense, as people interpreted the sign bylaw in different ways. We were seeing a proliferation of signs on particularly a couple of islands. I think of the one at the bend of where Oak Bay becomes Newport that had a large number of signs. That was a very dangerous location that was blocking sight lines, and that was true of a number of islands. So I do think this is rational. I think it makes sense for us to, again, I see this as a minor tweak to an existing sign bylaw that already limits where signs can go. It creates a significant amount of clarity and ensures that there's safety at the places that the signs are being used. So I think there's a bit of hyperbole in some of the comments that have gone on this one, and I just think rationally it is our job to look at this and use our common sense and look at ways of applying. Is the sign bylaw working now? Yes. Could it be a little bit better? I believe so. I think some of these changes will make that an improvement. Again, particularly for the non-municipal elections where the clarity of location will be of great benefit. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Murdoch. Councillor Green.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for all the comments, everyone. I don't see this as an unusual undertaking. It is consistent with a number of other communities in British Columbia, as I indicated earlier. I also think it is an equity issue. I think that restricting signage equitably across the board provides equal opportunity to new candidates as it does to incumbents. And I will tell you that in every election I have run in, there is sign anxiety. It is about the ability to afford signage. It is about where they're placed, how they're placed, and I think the clarity really will reduce some of that anxiety for candidates and also for staff in that regard in terms of enforcement. So I will be supporting the motion, and I appreciate the comments and thank you for the report, Mr. Rennick.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Councillor Smart.
Yeah, I just summarize that as an existing candidate, we probably all around this table have a list of many contacts from previous elections in which we can call on day one and immediately put up all of our election signs on private property. As a new candidate, you have to make all of those relationships in a very short amount of time, going door to door, asking people that don't even know you to put up a sign on your lawn. It is not the same. And I really feel that restricting these sign locations advantages us and disadvantages new candidates running.
Thank you, Councillor Smart. We have the motion for second reading on the floor. So I will call the question. All in favor? And all opposed? Councillor Smart, Watson, and myself opposed. That passes. So we're now at second reading. Mayor Murdoch, if you had some amendments to make, I will invite you to please bring those forward.
Sure. Thank you, Chair, and for your indulgence on this. I guess the first, I was going to go sort of in the order in the report if people want to look at the images on there. The first one is on page 7 of 16 at the Cedar Hill Crossroad and Cadborough Bay Road, and I'd like to make a motion to this is really more related to the graphic. To limit the signs to the western, maybe if I can just get a seconder, I can just quickly motivate on each of these. Amend the graphic to indicate just the westerly half of that island.
Moved and
Second.
seconded. Moved and seconded.
So this is just again us previous all of us having different experiences here. I know that route is used very frequently by cycling groups that use the that quadrant of Cadborough Bay, Lansdowne, Henderson, Cedar Hill Cross for doing circuits, and that corner is because they want to come around that corner at some speed. That visual corridor is quite a difficult one, and I think if I think particularly other people going down that slip lane are also going to have a bit of that challenge as it's a turn. So I just think from experience, I think that if we just limit it to the western half, it would still allow for the sightlines around the corner for that use without putting people at risk.
Thank you, Mayor Murdoch. I guess then I would put a question to staff. Number one, I guess you're proposing the westerly portion of what is displayed in the Cedar Hill Crossroad and Cadborough Bay Road. I guess my questions for staff would, one, how practically could that be enforced, for one thing? And secondly, was the traffic island in its entirety not considered as far as, like, as I understand it, visibility and traffic considerations were a primary driver towards consideration of locations. So was that visibility component considered for the entirety of the island? Mr. Rennick.
Thank you for the question, Chair. I'll actually answer them in the reverse order. So the visibility was considered for the entire traffic island. In an initial draft of the bylaw, we also had the middle traffic island at that intersection and ultimately removed it because we felt that one was a no-go. In terms of the practicality of enforcement, I think that it's difficult to translate lines on a page in a bylaw to reality on a boulevard. I think it's easier if it's the entire island, but if it's the will of council to have that be a smaller polygon, ultimately that's the direction that council can provide.
Thank you, Mr. Rennick. So the amendment which is on the floor is for a restriction to the westerly component of the island outlined at Cedar Hill Crossroad and Cadborough Bay Road. That's on page 7 of 16 of the
So
staff
just,
report.
if I may, I think having heard that from Mr. Rennick, I'm willing to take that back, and I think we can let this one try it as it is. So I'm happy to rescind my motion to amend.
So, and that's amenable to the seconder? Okay. Okay, duly withdrawn, Mayor Murdoch. So you had some further
thank you.
items?
Yeah, no, thank you. And then going to the other one was just, this one I think is just will benefit. It's just the beach drive from Windsor to Beresford. That has a natural end right at Beresford, as described, where there is a crosswalk and a walkway barrier. The extending beyond. Oh, sorry. So the motion would just be to that section be the graphic reflect its termination at Beresford Street
Okay,
at the northern end.
So for clarity, we're referring to the graphic on page 13 of 16 of the staff package.
Correct.
Beach Drive from Windsor to Beresford Street. The indicated polygon extends north of Beresford Street. You're proposing an amendment to that polygon which terminates it at the intersection of Beach and Beresford.
Correct.
So that is the motion. Do we have a seconder? Seconded.
So
Please
very
proceed.
very quickly on this one, that north of Beresford, that grass widens out and enters directly into that park. And I think we're getting it's where that polygon ends is not extraordinarily clear, but also it becomes adjacent to a park, which I think was our original intent was to avoid. And so my logic here is there was actually a crosswalk that crosses right at Beresford. There's a concrete line. So I think if the indicator, the wording says it from Beach Drive to Beresford, if the polygon ended right at Beresford, I think that would be helpful to clarify where that would be allowed.
Okay, so the amendment is duly made and seconded. I think the intention is clear. Any discussion on that amendment? Councillor Smart.
Thank you. Just through you, Chair, just a clarification, because I'm just trying to pull this up on Google Maps. Just wondering about the proximity to Glenlyon Norfolk School. Are we not even up that far? I'm just trying to. No, we're not even up that far. Okay, now I'm seeing. Okay, thank you. I'm just because of the timing, I just didn't have time to look at the map. Thank you.
The area immediately south of Haynes Park in this case. Councillor Braithwaite.
Thanks, Chair. I actually would prefer to have this location taken out in its entirety, and based on the comments that I made before, that I feel that it's visually, it's not an area where I would like to see signs, and I do believe that weather will, for some of the signs, will actually cause them to be blown over. Some of those signs that are on the wires are not really, really stable. And so I would actually prefer to see that whole area taken out rather than just that one little corner at the top.
Okay, duly noted. The motion on the floor is to amend the existing polygon, so that will be the matter for council to decide. Any further discussion on the amendment motion on the floor? Councillor Patterson.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Appreciate the discussion around the table. I do agree with the mayor on this one. It is, there is a crosswalk at Beresford, so that is a natural location for it to end. It will not be, I don't think, easily clarified to people where the polygon ends exactly as it shows now, but I think that clearly through the statements, it's from Windsor to Beresford, and if the diagram is modified to be more concise, I think that will alleviate any discrepancies with it going beyond that and then starting to encroach on Glen Lyons School. So I support the amendment proposed.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Further discussion on the amendment. Councillor Smart.
Yeah, thank you. I will support the amendment for supporting keeping this location and supporting not having signs in the park.
Thank you very much, Councillor Smart. I will just take the opportunity to speak for myself, and I feel similarly. I will support the amendment. Despite not supporting the process, I will support the amendment because I think this is a significant location, and I think that it is a useful modification of that polygon. So, seeing no further discussion, I'm calling calling the question on the amendment on this specific polygon. All in favor of the amendment? And any opposed? Councillor Braithwaite opposed. That passes. Mayor Murdoch, did you have anything further?
Yeah, just two more. One is at the 500 block of Beach Drive. I'm just going to move that section be removed. If there's a seconder, I'll explain why.
Moved and seconded. Please proceed.
So there's two, this is to my mind, we have a fairly substantial block of space just a couple of blocks down on Beach Drive, which is the same sort of contiguous area. So it's not sort of necessary from an area perspective. And by their very nature, one of these is actually adjacent again to a private home. And I think that there would be some confusion here about signs. That's the one sort of in the bottom right. It is, immediately adjacent to the property there. And there's no, and these two very small pieces here, I find more confusing than helpful, where the other areas are more contiguous. So I think both for the reason that there is a duplication of space that's just a bit further down the road, it's adjacent to a private property, and the locations of this are not as clear as the other locations proposed. I'm just suggesting that they just get removed.
Thank you, Mayor Murdoch. So just for clarity, the motion is to delete the two locations shown in the 500 block of Beach Drive on page 14 of 16 of the staff package.
Correct.
Discussion on that amendment. Councillor Smart.
Thank you. Just a question through you, Chair, to staff. Could we just confirm whether any of these are in front of properties as suggested by the mayor?
I think there's some outline here, so this is shown on the map, but Mr. Rennick, if you wanted to clarify.
Through the chair, they're not in front of a property, but they are very close to the northwest corner of, I think that's 607 Beach Drive.
Thank you, Mr. Rennick. Anything further, Councillor Smart? Further discussion on the amendment motion? For my part, I will not support the amendment motion. I think if this is the course that council elects to take, that we need to retain as many locations as possible and have them be geographically distributed throughout the district, so I would not support this amendment. Councillor Smart.
Yeah, I also won't be supporting the amendment. I think we're doing enough of a drastic reduction in possible places to use signs, and the hope with this new proposal was that we would have them geographically distributed, so I would not support removing.
Thank you, Councillor Smart. Councillor Braithwaite.
Thank you. I will be in support of the motion.
Further discussion on this amendment? I will call the question. All in favor? And those opposed? Myself, Councillor Watson, and Smart oppose. That passes. Mayor Murdoch.
And my last one, I promise. And this one I'm not 100% sure, but I wanted to just have it for discussion. And that is on page 12 of 16 to remove the area at the corner of Transit Road and McNeil Avenue.
So the motion is to remove, moved and seconded, to remove the polygon shown on page 12 of 16 of the council package at the corner of Transit and McNeil.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. And briefly, I when this was flagged, I think it was in Councillor Smart's piece. I said, oh, that actually makes a lot of sense because that is a sort of a little piece of property that is ours and is not, it meets the criteria. The reason I flagged it here, and I just kind of want to hear from my fellow councillors, is while it does meet the criteria, I think for most people, they see that as the yard beside a private house. And so I think the perception is going to be, and I think if that house was there, they would be held accountable for that. So I just think it meets the technical aspects of it. I think practically speaking, it kind of has the appearance of the boulevard in front of a private house. And so I just thought I'd just flag it here because I think it warranted at least a little bit of a discussion.
Thank you, Mayor Murdoch. Discussion on the amendment motion. Councillor Smart.
Thank you. I did also initially have the same question, and I guess for me, I did appreciate staff's approach with really keeping it linear along the road, and perhaps in the same way that staff might be going away and looking at a suggested sign for signs not to be removed from Eastdown and Estevan, perhaps there could be almost like a similar sign here, just denoting that it's a public election sign location.
Thank you, Councillor Smart. Councillor Watson.
I would just add to the argument in favor of keeping it because as I agree with some of my council colleagues, we need as many locations since we're doing this. I think we need as many locations as possible, not as few. And the public has become accustomed to public signage on that piece of land for quite a few months now. So I think it would be apparent to anybody who's going by there regularly to the park that actually is public land and not private property. There's a large sign there right now.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Councillor Patterson.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I too am in support of retaining this as it is. I appreciate what the mayor says about it being perhaps perceived as a boulevard attached to a private residence. However, it is not attached to a private residence. And I think that, that could be said about locations around the district, but I think this is balancing the exposure that candidates will want for the election to this area, and so I think that this one should remain in. I think it's a good location for signage, and it can accommodate it and can do it safely. So I wouldn't be supportive of removing this location. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. And just speaking for myself, opposed to this motion for very similar reasons, just in terms of balancing out locations, and I do feel that it is distinct enough from the adjacent private property that it warrants retention. So I'm not supportive of the amendment as it currently is proposed. So just for clarity, the amendment proposed here is to remove that location. So then a vote in favor is to remove, and a vote opposing is to retain that location at Transit and McNeil, just for clarity. So then I will call the question. Mayor Murdoch, please.
I just wanted to say thank you to my fellow councillors here. I think that's exactly the conversation I wanted to have. I think that it makes a lot of sense. I imagine that we get some complaints in future, But I think it's, I understand the rationale of moving forward with it at this time, so thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Murdoch. So I will call the question on the amendment. All in favor? Mayor Murdoch in favor. Any opposed? The remainder of council opposed. Councillor Braithwaite, sorry.
Oh, sorry, I'm in favor.
In favor, okay.
I just didn't put my hand up, sorry.
Okay, very good. So Councillor, or Mayor Murdoch and Councillor Braithwaite in favor, the remainder opposed, that fails. Do we have any further amendments of this type at second reading? Councillor Braithwaite, please.
Thank you very much, Chair, and through you. I would like to put a motion on the floor to remove the location at Crescent Road in Quimper.
So for clarity, this is the final location in the list on page 16 of 16, Crescent Road at Quimper Street. So to remove that location in its entirety. Do you have a seconder?
For discussion.
Seconded for discussion. You may motivate.
Thank you so much. I just feel that this one, I'm not really sure why it's in here. It feels more directly adjacent to residential character than many of the other arterial sites. And so I think we should be cautious about introducing concentrated sign areas into spaces that do not already function as broader civic or transportation corridors, and I don't think that that meets that criteria. So that's why I would like consideration of removing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Braithwaite. Further discussion of the amendment. Councillor Watson.
Sorry, I just heartily disagree with that assessment. I think it is an important public space. It's a transit hub. And it's great. There's no safety issues, and it meets the criteria that were set out for evaluation of these spaces. So, yeah, I just think it would be a disservice to the community as we're trying to create some spaces for election signage to remove that spot.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Further discussion, Councillor Smart.
Thank you. I just feel the need to comment as someone who's a resident in the area that I will benefit the least from this location because I have many contacts in the location. So despite the letter writer who would like to insinuate that I might advantage from this location, I'm the least in need of it. So I just felt the need to clarify that.
Thank you, Councillor Smart. Further commentary. Councillor Patterson, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I won't support removing this location, and the reason, it's been stated quite well at the table here, but I guess my observation has been that Harling Point is often kind of the forgotten little corner of Oak Bay, and I think it is important that in that location, that they are involved in the community election and feel like part of the community. And so I think that this just is a good recommendation by staff to see that all areas throughout Oak Bay that are part of the community are in fact part of the election process too. So I would leave this location in for signage, and I think that says a lot about wanting all parts of the community to participate in the democratic process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Mayor Murdoch, please.
Yeah, very briefly, I appreciated the rationale given for this, and I in some ways I tend to agree, but I also think that it does meet the criteria. It is a transit stop. And frankly, I think the choice of whether or not to use a space like this, if it's low traffic, will come down to the individual councillors, whether or not they see it has merit to put signs there, given the cost. So I think given that, and I did appreciate Councillor Patterson's comments on this, I think I'm not going to support the motion to remove this one. And again, I think our process here is this has been an iterated bylaw over the years, and we can always, this can be revisited in future time, but I think it makes sense to include it at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Murdoch. Just speaking for myself, I will not support the motion on the floor. I think distribution of sites throughout the district is significant, and I do agree with the comment from Councillor Patterson as far as Harling Point is often underserved, not necessarily underserved, but under-recognized, I guess, as a community. So I think it's important that there is a location in Harling Point. So that's my perspective on it. So I will not support the amendment motion. So any further debate on the amendment motion? Seeing none, I will call the question. All in favor? Councillors Green and Braithwaite in favor? All opposed? Mayor Murdoch, myself, Councillors Watson, Patterson, and Smart opposed. That fails. Councillor Braithwaite, did you have any further amendments to make? Okay, thank you. Councillor Smart, please.
Yeah, I'd like to move an amendment to allow election signs to be placed in front of school properties on municipal boulevards.
So moved. Do we have a seconder? Seconded. Councillor Watson. Please motivate.
Yeah, thank you. This just addresses the fact that we currently allow election signs to be placed in front of school properties on municipal boulevards. This location isn't actually really utilized at all, and there may be very few or no places that are utilized. But in light of the school trustees election changing to a riding system, I don't feel that we at this table should be restricting the possibility for school trustee candidates to advertise in probably the most ideal location should they choose to do so, and should they find an appropriate place that actually meets all the other restrictions in our bylaws. So I just wanted to make sure that we weren't not consciously having this conversation at the table. And deciding to potentially allow something that at a time where things are changing, and it might actually become more advantageous for school board trustees to utilize election signs, that we aren't inadvertently taking away the most prominent location for them to communicate with parents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smart. So the motion on the floor is to essentially restore boulevards in front of school properties as available locations. Debate on the amendment. Mayor Murdoch.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I actually am not clear. My recollection of that is that they were not open season in past years. I believe school districts had some limits. I actually look at this in the same sense as I would look at it. I take the point made that there was merit given, school district trustees, benefit from getting their names out there. And I think that is, and obviously they are welcome to use the same public locations that we allow for all the other people in our jurisdiction. To my thought, this is a decision for the school district to make if they want their schools to be used as places for school district trustees to advertise. It is extremely simple for them to just give that allowance for their properties and have that happen without us. That would have, because that change essentially would probably quadruple or more the amount of space available for signs without the limitations of numbers or anything else. I think it dramatically changes the nature of the intent of this. I do think that it probably is really worthwhile for us just to share with the school district, if they haven't thought about it yet, they should be clear about their policies around advertising for trustees or for the broader electorate on their property, because most of these pieces are actually on their property. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Murdoch. I guess I kind of skipped over staff there a little bit, so I might give staff an opportunity to clarify just in terms of what was the existing standard and what is the novel standard. Mr. Rennick.
Through the chair, I was actually seeking a clarifying question. Councillor Smart referred to school properties, and the discussion sounded like it was around School District 61 trustees, and so I was wondering whether the intent of the mover was that Glen Lyon Norfolk School and St. Michael's School be included or excluded. We would need to know that to prepare the bylaw were the motion to pass.
Thank you, Mr. Rennick. I will leave it to the mover to clarify.
Yeah, thank you. I did leave it open, but I am open to amending it to be more restrictive to SD 61 properties. At this point, I don't see that this is going to be heavily utilized, but in my discussions with staff to date in trying to come up with a motion around this, my understanding is that even for the school properties to choose to do this, we need the freedom in our bylaw to allow them to choose to do this. So as far as Mayor Murdoch's suggestion that we leave it to the school districts to decide, the problem with that is that it would be then in contradiction with our bylaw, and then we'd have to have a bylaw revision, and it's very close to the election to do that. And so that is the reason for just leaving, basically, at this point, leaving it the way it was before this whole project came to be. Perhaps we can learn from this election and decide to restrict school properties next time, but we're currently not restricting school properties. And so this motion is just entirely around, let's not change that yet, especially with what's going on with the changes with the school trustee elections.
Thank you, Councillor Smart. So as I understand it, you are proposing an amendment essentially to reintroduce the language from the former bylaw, essentially with respect to schools. Is that enough clarity for staff? We would need some guidance as to exactly how the terminology around schools was phrased in the previous bylaw, I believe. Mr. Rennick.
Thank you, Chair. The current bylaw is really silent on school properties. I think that if council were to pass the motion on the floor, we would need to do a report back. This won't be something that we can just bring an amended bylaw for third reading.
Okay, then I would suggest, we have passed second reading. We do have several amendments on that point. It would result, I guess I would ask for Ms. Anderson's guidance, but we have second reading passed, so then we would be seeking potentially a motion to refer back to staff to report out on the implications of that proposed amendment. Is that the best action in this case?
Thank you through the chair. As the motion is written, if it was to pass, if it was the will of council to pass, we would hold third reading and we would come back and with the bylaw as amended, as we've interpreted it, as a report back for third reading as amended.
Okay, so just for clarity, if the motion, we have the motion live on the floor. We can debate the motion and call the question on the motion. If the motion were to pass, then it would essentially return to staff. We would not do third reading at tonight's meeting, and it would go to a subsequent meeting. So, but I guess it will be to the will of council as to whether or not this amendment goes ahead. So I will have Councillor Green and then Councillor Watson and Councillor Braithwaite.
Thank you very much. This is an interesting one because I actually have sympathy for school district candidates when they're running. There is a lot of organization around municipal candidates with all candidates meetings, organizations getting together and hosting all candidates meetings and so on. There are a lot of opportunities for municipal candidates to meet the public, to market themselves and so on during an election. There are very limited opportunities for school board trustees. I've always believed that they got the short stick during municipal local elections. There was nothing really organized for them. I'm not aware that they had many all candidates meetings, and I think it's a pretty lonely slog for them when they're running for the school board. So if in any way we can lift them during the election and lift their profile, that would be helpful. I've always thought it would be great for municipalities to sort of share the election process with the school district or collaborate at least on some of the all candidates events and so on. But having said that, I would certainly like to have a report back from staff if we can do so that it doesn't complicate the jurisdictional issue.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Councillor Watson.
Yes, I just wanted to say that I would support this motion. I think that we are going in this fall election, we have a brand-new structure for school district governance, which makes the process of the election and candidacy much more close and personal, both for Oak Bay voters and school district candidates who want to run in Oak Bay. And I understand what the mayor's saying about, yes, sure, it should be up to it will be up to the school districts themselves to decide what is allowed in front of their properties, but we should not be an obstacle to letting them say yes. So I would really like to get staff's advice about how we should amend the bylaw to allow that possibility, should the school district 61 itself agree to it.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Councillor Braithwaite.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. We're not allowed to put signs on municipal lawns, and I'm not sure if school trustees can put it in front of schools. I don't ever remember putting a sign in front of a school. What I do remember is people trying to campaign in front of a school and being asked not to because the school wasn't allowing that. So I'm not convinced that boulevards directly in front of schools are the most appropriate locations for concentrated election signage. Schools are unique community spaces with high child and family activity, and I think we should be cautious about treating them in the same way as major transportation or civic sign nodes. Most municipalities apply additional restrictions around sensitive public spaces, and I think it's reasonable to ask whether school frontage belong in that category or not. So again, as far as my recollection goes, I've never put a sign in front of a school in all of the elections that I've run in.
Thank you, Councillor Braithwaite. Councillor Smart, please.
Yeah, I just would like to comment to council that I know in the last election that Margaret Jenkins School, which has half of Oak Bay residents at the elementary school level attending, does allow election signs in front of the school, and it's a really nice way for very busy parents to learn about who's running in the election. So I do know that it does occur in other municipalities.
Thank you, Councillor Smart. Mayor Murdoch, please.
Yeah, thank you. I think this needs a little bit of clarification and guidelines for this. My general feeling on this one is because I think it's a pretty substantive and there's some fundamental questions here asked. Is this only public schools or independent schools included? Is it just for trustees? Because I've heard a lot of, and I do agree that I think if there's ways that we can help the trustee awareness process, that makes sense. But if this is opening it up to all the municipal candidates, those trustee signs are going to get lost in the crush around schools as well. My personal recommendation on this one would be that we don't support this motion, but that we do initiate a letter to the school district and ask them, have they thought about what they want done for election signs around their school? Do they want trustees only? Do they want none? Do they want everything? Are they comfortable with everything? And then we can then consider an amendment to the sign bylaw based on what their feedback is. But I think it's what I've got here is a lot of questions and not a lot of answers. And I think if there's, I tend to agree with the tone I'm hearing, which is how do we help school board trustees get the visibility that they need? And I think that's a really good question. I didn't hear that being the proposal. The proposal I heard is everybody signs and with the wording with no limits per site because they wouldn't have the same kind of parcel. So I can't support the motion as it's put there, but I do think it really does warrant a conversation with the school district as to what they would like, how they would like to partner with us to make sure that school trustees can be supported in their campaign process. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Murdoch. Ms. Hunt.
Thank you very much. I just want council to be aware, timing is fairly important on this. We will be preparing, packages for candidates coming up over, probably in July. And so, making sure that we have this sign bylaw nailed down and the sign locations, because that will be part of the package. So I understand what Mayor Murdoch is saying. I am just a bit concerned that we're running out of time to do extensive consultation, with the various schools and be able to collect that information, return to council with another report, and then have council make amendments. So I just caution that we are running out of time in terms of process.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification, Ms. Hunt. And I guess I think that's a fair point. My observation of that is if the school board wishes to have trustees or all election signs available, they can certainly make that available on their property, just like anybody else could. So I think that's actually is available right now, but that would really be their call. It just wouldn't be available on all of the boulevards all the way around every school, as the motion is in front of us.
Thank you, Mayor Murdoch. I have Councillors Green and Smart, but I do want to be conscious of time and whether or not we have any other amendments to make. So I'll ask you.
I'll be really brief, and I appreciate all the comments. If we don't support this now, going forward, because of the time constraints and the pressure to get packages prepared and all of that for the election, I would really encourage the mayor to sit down with the superintendent of School District 61 and talk about how our respective bodies could support and encourage candidates around election time. I think that conversation should be had more than just a letter. I would like to see a meeting with senior staff and the mayor and superintendent at some point in the future to talk about this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Councillor Smart.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to express my concern about saying that school districts could still have signs on their property versus on the municipal boulevard. It's not the same thing. Like, we allow residential properties to use the public boulevards because that's where people see them when they're walking, when they're driving, when they're cycling. So I really feel strongly that we're restricting so much already that we shouldn't change really what this motion does is just allow what is already currently available, has never really been utilized to date, may still not be utilized, but at least we're not creating a barrier. And we're just basically, this is in a sense a status quo motion that basically says we're not changing stuff with regards to schools, we're keeping things the same.
Thank you, Councillor Smart. Seeing no further discussion, so the motion for clarity, the motion on the floor is for the provision of school boulevards, the boulevard space adjacent to schools, as being available for election signs in the bylaw. I will call the question on that amendment. All in favor? And all opposed? Councillor Braithwaite, Patterson, Green, and Mayor Murdoch opposed. That fails. Are there any other further amendments proposed to the bylaw at second reading? I do not see any. I appreciate this debate. Then I will ask for a motion to give the bylaw third reading and a reminder as amended, please.
I'll move that signed bylaw number 3946, 1997, amendment bylaw number 4962, 2026, be read a third time as amended.
Thank you very much. Moved and seconded. Discussion. Usually don't discuss on third reading, as I am now currently reminded. So then I will call the question. All in favor? And all opposed? Myself, Councillor Watson, and Councillor Smart opposed. That passes at third reading. Thank you very much. Moving on. Thank you for that discussion, and thank you for the support from staff. We're working through those amendments. Final item on this section of the agenda is blasting regulation changes, proposed bylaws. Mr. Bull, thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Chair. Blasting regulations have been discussed on several occasions over the last years, and as directed by Council in July of last year, today's report includes the recommendations from 2 advisory bodies as well as the proposed bylaw. The Heritage Commission looked at the bylaw last fall and recommended approval of the proposed regulation while making a comment to consider acknowledging non-registered heritage buildings. The Advisory Planning Commission also looked at the bylaw and recommended approval and provided a number of comments for council consideration. And the staff report provides more information about their comments. And today, the bylaws in front of you, the key one is a separate blasting bylaw that has now been prepared as recommended by our lawyers. It includes the program that has been developed over the last couple of years. A summary table is included as the first attachment. To give you a couple of highlights in response to resident concerns, the new regulation now includes rock breaking and sets volume limits for blasting. And then for rock hammering specifically, hours of operations have been set and restricted to only afternoons in recognition of the noise impact. The notification area also has been increased. Consideration is being given to designated and registered heritage buildings by making sure they're shown on the map. Industry input has also been considered, and for example, by making sure there's sufficient time for each permit to be able to complete the work, and also by foregoing an earlier considered requirement that was in play for a moment for a third-party review. So all in all, this blasting regulation seeks to balance the livability objectives, but also with a need to provide reasonable options for construction activities. So a total of 4 bylaws have been prepared to implement this new program, and they are provided to you today for your consideration of bylaw readings. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bull. Questions for staff? Councillor Patterson, then Braithwaite, please.
Thank you, Chair, and through you, thanks for this report. I know people have been anxiously awaiting amendments to our blasting bylaw for some period of time, and it's a very sensitive topic in the community. And in what we are proposing, I think the changes are good. One question I do have, though, because it's not clear to me in what has been presented, is where the responsibility and authority lie for verifying the blasting contractor's insurance and registration with governing bodies. If it is up to the general contractor to provide that evidence to the municipality, or if the municipality seeks it from the blasting contractor. If we could just get a clarification from staff, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Mr. Bull.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, we seek that confirmation from the blasting contractor, and that's already something that is in our current regulation, so we get proof of insurance, and we'll rely on that to check for the coverage and the date of start of coverage. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Bull. Councillor Braithwaite, please.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. Yeah, we have been waiting a long time for this report, and I really appreciate the considerable consultation and work that's gone into trying to balance the neighborhood livability concerns with the practical development realities. So I really appreciate that, so thank you. Couple of questions that I have would be, with these changes, does staff currently have sufficient capacity to enforce the new requirements? Yeah, just, I guess that's my first question, if you have the staff capability.
Mr. Bull.
Thank you for the chair. Yeah, we would rely on our building official team, and most of the due diligence takes place before the permit is issued. So we rely on that and assume that once the permit is issued, everything should be fine with sufficient time. There will be cases that maybe somebody takes more time than allotted, or there are other concerns that might come up. Sometimes happens currently as well. And we would still rely on the same team of building officials, or if need be, the bylaw compliance official, to have a look on site and see what's going on and take any measures that might need it. So it costs a little bit of more time, but I was pointing out in the report as well that we also think that there may be less permits as well, because it does require certain commitment to apply for the permit and provide the relevant documentation. So on balance, we think we're good, but it is a small increase in work. Thanks.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you. And then, so I always ask this because this is where I think our residents feel the most vulnerable. But what recourse exists for residents who believe that they have that the blasting has caused damage, and how are disputes typically resolved in that case? Because I'm wondering if a pre-blast survey has to be done on all the neighboring properties around where the blasting is going to take place. Sorry, that was a lot of questions.
Mr. Ball. Thank you, through the chair. Let me see. The first thing, especially for owners that are approached by the blaster for a pre-blast survey, it's called. It's basically their insurer taking a look in advance. It's an opportunity to let them, but also for yourself, to take stock of what's the state of the house at that point. And it helps down the road to clearly identify what is caused by blasting and what's not. So now, if there is damage that occurs and it's believed to be related to blasting, then the homeowner that is experiencing the damage should contact their own insurance, and their own insurance company will then reach out to the blaster's insurance, and a whole process starts of assessing what the damage is, if it's clearly related to the blasting, and if that's the case, it should be covered through that insurance that is required before anybody gets a permit. Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions for staff? Seeing none, this is an item that is open for public input. So if there's anybody in the room or online that wishes to contribute, I don't see anybody online and I don't anticipate any hands there, but I will give it a couple of seconds just for the feed to catch up and see whether anybody wants to speak to this item. Seeing none, then I will bring it back to this table. And there is an extensive list of bylaws to read in. So
I'll read them very fast. I'm going to move that the blasting and rock breaking bylaw number 4958/2026 be read a first and second time.
Moved and seconded. Discussion on the motion. Councillor Watson.
Yes, I'd just like to say that I'm happy to support it. I think the fact, the observation that you just made, that there was nobody online or in the room or even correspondence to address this, just points to the fact that we've come to a very successful result as a result of wide consultation and the involvement of all the interested parties. And so the fact that nobody is here to speak for or against this indicates to me that we've reached the right kind of balance between those interests.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Councillor Green, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very pleased with this report and with the recommendations, and I'm grateful to staff for while it was a long process, it was a thorough one. And I really do think at the end of the day, it is about public health and safety. And I think that in this way, we have tried to cover all those bases and ensure residents that blasting and hoe ramming and rock breaking and all the rest of it, while it may be part of the development process, we do have the ability to monitor and regulate. So I think it's a great outcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Any further debate on the motion on the floor? Then I will call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Please proceed.
I'll move that blasting and rock breaking bylaw number 4958/2026 be read a third time.
Moved and seconded. I will call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Please proceed, Councillor.
I'll move that the anti-noise bylaw number 3210/1977, amendment bylaw number 4960/2026 be read a first and second time.
Moved and seconded. Debate on the motion on the floor. Seeing none, I will call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? None opposed.
And I'll move that anti-noise bylaw number 3210/1997, amendment bylaw number 4960/2026 be read a third time.
Moved and seconded. And then I'll call the question on third reading. All in favor? Any opposed? None opposed.
And I'll move that building and plumbing bylaw number 4247/2005, amendment bylaw number 4959/2026 be read a first and second time.
Moved and seconded. Any debate on the motion? Seeing none, I will call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? None opposed.
And I'll move that building and plumbing bylaw number 4247.
Oh, Mike.
sorry, I'll move that building and plumbing bylaw number 4247, 2005, amendment bylaw number 4959, 2026 be read a third time.
Moved and seconded. I will call the question on third reading. All in favor? Any opposed? None opposed.
And I'll move that planning and development fees and charges bylaw number 4845, 2023, amendment bylaw number 4961, 2026 be read a first and second time.
Moved and seconded. Debate on the motion. Seeing none, I will call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? None opposed.
And lastly, I will move the planning and development fees and charges bylaw number 4845, 2023, amendment bylaw number 4961, 2026 be read a third time.
Moved and seconded. The motion is on the floor for third reading. I will call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Braithwaite. Moving along from this motion, I will take the opportunity to say, as some councillors have referenced, this has been long in development, and I just want to recognize the amount of work that staff in building and planning have had lots to do in a bunch of other different aspects of the operation, and I know that work on this proceeds when, capacity is available, and, I know that staff understands the significance of the bylaw in the community, and now having a standalone blasting bylaw is very significant for the district. So a significant accomplishment and a significant amount of work by building and planning. So wanted to recognize that and say thank you. Moving along, item 6 is new business. I do not believe we have any new business. We may have a notice of motion under item 7 though, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, Councillor Smart, please.
Yeah, thank you. I have a notice of motion. Could I read it into the record?
You would need to read it into the record for it, so it's going to be captured. Yes, thank you, Councillor.
The notice of motion is for staff to return to council with options for introducing a marine shoreline setback for structures within the shoreline DPA area.
Thank you, Councillor Smart. Well, this is just notice of motion at this time, so that's okay. But this is so staff will take this away. Is it sufficiently clear in terms of language for staff? Seeing nods, so that's okay. So we will see this at a further council meeting. So thank you very much for that. It only remains to have a motion to adjourn, please. Motion moved and seconded. All in favor? Any opposed to adjournment? Seeing none, we stand adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Appleton, for stepping in. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Mayor Murdoch.